day of Sivan, the 20th of June 2024. Please bear with me for a few moments on the dedications for today's class. Today's class graciously sponsored by Ricardo and Orna Jamal Le'ilui Nishmat, her beloved father, Yeshayahu ben Moshe Tzvi, alav shalom. Additionally, by Elias Perez Le'ilui Nishmat, his mother, Josephine bat Shemuel aleh shalom. Additionally, by Nathan Yadgard Le'ilui Nishmat, his grandmother, Marcel bat Yaakov. Additionally, by Sarit Warman and Rachel Alfasi Le'ilui Nishmat, their grandfather Meir ben Rebecca alav shalom, and Le'ilui Nishmat, their father Leon ben Rachel alav shalom. Iratzon that to the words of Torah their neshamot have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. As many of you heard me inside last night and today, we were honored to meet and to spend quality time with Hacham Ishak Yosef Shelita, the chief rabbi of Israel, that had a stopover from his recent trip to Panama, going back to Eretz Israel, literally as we speak. And earlier today and very late last night, we spent great time with a great Hacham. And I'll tell you in summary what he said. But before I do that, I'm going to say a beracha. But Baruch אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. It's an unbelievable feeling when you get to see someone so great and so humble, literally. And I saw him and I spent time with him, and you see him, the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he greets people. His humility is something that I think that I need to emulate in a certain extent. But he did say the following. Obviously, he's very happy to know how the overall communities in South Florida are flourishing, each one in their way, each one on their level. But one thing he did say that not only is imperative that the parents and obviously the community learns Torah, but he also said that also the children need to be encouraged to learn Torah. And somebody obviously asked afterwards, obviously if you send a child to a good Torah school, the child is learning Torah. What does it mean? Make sure that the children are learning Torah. So I think that the meaning of the words of the great rabbi, and he said it in Hebrew, and the translation was done in an abridged manner, but it was beautifully done translation by a dear friend of mine. Thank God I was not asked to translate, because it wasn't a short speech, and it was very mamash. He's a machine talking, so to speak. He talks and he quotes and he quotes and he quotes and he quotes, that by the time you're digesting quote number 3, he's already in quote number 15. True. And I'm someone that I can relate and I do understand. But in a way, he said, it says that learning Torah, it's important. But the learning of Torah can only affect the life of the person if we are thinking Torah. In other words, if we are thinking like a Torah Jew. The rabbi said a few stories how sometimes he's asked even by the Prime Minister Office of Israel, come and give a class on Pirkei Avot. Okay, beautiful. Pirkei Avot is suitable for everyone. But the rabbi said, when a person even learns the Pirkei Avot, if you're learning Torah only from an intellectual angle and not from the concept of intellect into practice, so the Torah remains intellectual. He says that there's certain places, he did not say names, obvious reasons, that they teach Talmud without a kippah, without tzitzit. And they just teaching it as archaic language. Chas v'shalom. And the great rabbi said that sometimes people wonder why the Torah that people learn doesn't influence the person, because they looking at it often as a class, as an intellectual food for the brain, instead of saying, let me eat so I can digest and I can put into practice. And he quoted a daily prayer that we all say, every one of us, doesn't matter which prayer book do you use, they all say the same. לשמוע, ללמוד ולקיים, לשמור ולעשות את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. There it says, ללמוד וללמד, to learn and to teach, לשמור ולעשות, to observe and to fulfill and to observe all the words of the Torah. So the great rabbi summarized saying that Torah is a package. It's a full package. You know, like you buy a vehicle and they tell you fully loaded, or you can buy options. Let's say you want in your car sensors in the bumper, right? You tell the guy, can you add sensors? No, 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 no. You cannot buy sensors only. You need to buy, let's call them the safety package. That includes 360 cameras, line blind, line departure, warning signal, LDWS. When you get your car, see if your car has LDWS. If it has, means that you depart from the lane that you are driving, suddenly there is an alarm or a vibration on the steering wheel. Maybe you're falling asleep. You know, the other day I was in Brooklyn and I rented a car. You know what the car screen said? Perhaps you need a coffee. Yes, way. He says, perhaps you need a coffee, or maybe it's time for a coffee break. The car was telling me, Rabbi, pull to the side. And I was normal, but I was driving too slow because it was New York traffic. And my driving patterns, I'm programmed to Florida traffic. So it was stopping, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. I was falling asleep, not falling asleep, but I was like bored, like, come on, move, But anyways, so the rabbi said that many times we as parents don't deliver this message to the children. And we look at the Torah as only as a robotic aspect without putting into the emotions and the feelings that really transfer the Torah from one generation to the other. And this is not a new topic. We discussed this around the time of Shavuot, when we spoke about Shavuot, that reminding the Kahal very quickly that every offer that Moshe Rabbeinu alayhi shalom gave Hashem, who is going to co-sign or guaranteed for the Torah, every offer, Hashem says, not enough credit, not enough credit, not enough credit, not enough credit. Until finally Moshe Rabbeinu said the magic words, Banenu, our children, are our co-signers, are our guarantors. In that case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, that's the only collateral that I'm willing to accept. It was a very short trip. I got home last night close to 1 o'clock, and today by 7 I was already in the hotel with the rabbi. I apologized to the great Hacham that I needed to leave. I felt funny telling the rabbi, I have to leave. Every rabbi was there. Okay? But I said to him what I need to do. He says, Rabbi, you go. Go take care of the kahal, go take care of the Torah class. That's what the rabbi said. I said, Hacham, have to apologize. Then somebody says, how dare you tell the chief rabbi you have to leave? He said, how dare you tell him that? True story. I know the guy. He says, what do you mean? I asked him permission. And he gave me the green light. I'm not going to do it. But that's exactly what the Torah says. There is a pasuk that says, Et la'asot Hashem heferu toratecha. There is a time to close the books, and there is a time to open the books. There is a time to pray. There is a time to learn. There is a time to give to the Kavod Hachamim, and there is a time that we need to apologize and to leave early. I was the first rabbi to leave, but I let him know. And he understood. He says, I bless you. Go, send my love to the Safra Synagogue. And Be'ezat Hashem, I hope to see you soon in Yerushalayim. He even asked me, how come I don't see you in Yerushalayim? Last time I saw you was 2 years ago. I want you to come back. I said, Hacham, he says, come, be thoughtful, and don't be a hero. Don't try to go to Gaza. If you want to go to Gaza, I'll take you. As a chief rabbi, he can go anywhere he wants. And he told me, I'm not going to say what he said, but he did say that the unfortunate calamities that are affecting Eretz Israel, okay, from October 7, unfortunately, are worse than what we can imagine. In the sense of not only the tragedy itself, he says the weekly or sometimes daily burials, bereavement visits, talking to the widows, talking to the orphans, not knowing the whereabouts of the relatives. Are they alive? They are not alive. And they are healthy, they are not healthy, are they wounded, they were healed. It says it's beyond understanding. Obviously, for obvious reasons, he cannot talk on this topic. But he says, I want you to know that whatever you think in this part of the world that is going on in Israel, it needs to be multiplied. He says there are cities that became ghost towns. So certain parts of Israel, he says today, literally people were evacuated. We're not talking about it, people, 1 or 2 families. He says the evacuation may be close to 500,000 citizens all over Israel, from the north and the south. And this is what we know. He says, you know how many questions of agunot he had to deal with? Of missing husbands. Babies born without parents knowing if it's alive or not. And many other, halachic ramifications of what's going on. So we keep praying and we keep doing whatever we can. So, Be'ezat Hashem, once and for all, we hear only good news coming from Eretz Israel. Okay, I'm going to save what I'm going to say tomorrow better, not today, because it's relevant for Shabbat. But the Gemara of today gives us an opening. Gemara of today from Masechet Hulin talks about the washing of our hands. The Gemara writes in Hulin, Maim Rishonim Misva, Maim Aharonim Hoba. Hoba. Literally, this means the 2 most famous washing of our hands related to eating. One is to wash before we eat the bread, obviously. And the other one is Maim Aharonim, the washing of our fingers before we say Birkat Hamazon. The Gemara explains, let me bring first the Netilat Yadayim before we eat bread. It's actually a pasuk in the book of Tehillim that says, Se'u et yedechem kodesh ubarechu et Hashem. Literally means, Se'u et yedechem, lift up your hands to sanctification, ubarechu et Hashem, and bless the Almighty. From here we learn, when we do Netilat Yadayim for bread, what do? We raise our hands. Okay? Nice. And we use a lot of water, correct? We already discussed this in the past, that the more water a person uses for netilat yadayim, it keeps away poverty. The water is related to shefa. Baruch Hashem, we have seen a tremendous amount of shefa in South Florida with a mega heavy triple-decker rain that we have throughout the holiday. You saw it? Unbelievable. All over. Water, 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 which is apropos to Shavuot, because Torah and Maim Ella Torah. So a lot of water came to in Shavuot. That's a good sign for Torah learning. It's not a joke that our city is called Aventura. It's actually Aventura. That's why Aventura is called Aventura. You like it? Beautiful. It's intellectual property, okay? Don't take it. It's Aventura. That's what it means. Ba'ezat Hashem. So it comes a Gemara, and it says, right, and it says, hold on a minute. You talk about two washings, Maim Aharonim and Maim Rishonim, before bread and after. What about the third washing? As a Gemara, third washing? Which one? Maim Emsaim. Rashud, the Gemara says. What's the meaning of Emsaim? The middle waters. What do you mean? There is a top, bottom, and center? The Gemara says yes. Let's explain each one. Excuse me. The washing of the hands is from Takanat Hachamim. My Maharonim is a stronger Takana of Hachamim. Even though they are both established by our Hachamim, but there is a rule in the Talmud that says, Hamura sakanta mi isura. There are two levels of prohibitions in our Torah. One is called prohibited. I apologize for that. And it says, there are prohibitions because the Torah tells us the reason. For example, the prohibition of, thank you so much, there are certain mitzvot that we have prohibitions, we don't have answers. We have certain mitzvot that there are prohibitions, and we understand. For example, don't mix meat and dairy. We don't know the reason. It's a decree. Meat by itself, fine. Dairy by itself is fine. You mix them, spiritual explosion. Don't be cruel to people or to animals. Makes sense. Cruelty is not a Jewish trait. So we understand that. But then there is a certain restriction or prohibition by the Torah in order to prevent a danger. For example, there is a mitzvah from the Torah called the mitzvah of Ma'akeh. Ma'akeh is the mitzvah to build a fence around an area that there is a potential danger. For example, balconies. You have the railing, right? On a staircase, you have the railing on a balcony, you put a fence around the swimming pool, especially in an area that there are children. All these commandments are there for what purpose? Safety measurements. So the Gemara writes, My Maharonim, it was established to prevent danger to the life of the person. Now, what danger are we referring to? I'm sure the Kahal knows the answer. Melach Sedomit, the salt of Sedom. That back then in the day, the salt came from Sedom, and Sedom was a place of destruction. The way the Torah writes, Gofrit b'melach serefa kol arsa lo tizara ve'lo tasmiach. Okay, it's a pasuk that talks about how the city of Sodom and Amorah and 3 other minor cities were destroyed, were cursed, and became a place of desolation and destruction. But there was something that came from Sodom, salt. and touching the salt of Sodom back then, and then rubbing your fingertips on your eyes will bring blindness, has v'shalom, to the eyes of the person. Hence the sakana. That's the meaning of the statement of the Talmud that says, Hamura is more strict, a prohibition to avert danger than a biblical standard prohibition. That's the meaning of the sentence of the Talmud. Comes a Gemara and it says that Hachamim establish one more washing in the middle of the Seudah. Let's say that you are now Shabbat meal, right? And you're eating fish. Many people eat fish on Shabbat. One of the reasons why we eat fish on Shabbat, because the fish, if I recall correctly, was the closest creation to humans, number one. And number two, the fish is the holiest creation from the animal kingdom level of creation. It goes first the fish, then goes the chicken, and then goes the beef. The beef is the lowest. How do you know this? Short answer. The beef is quadruped. The four legs stand on the ground. The chicken, 2 feet on the ground and 2 wings to fly. And the fish is surrounded by water. And the water is the survival of the Jewish people. The water is the Torah. There is no shechita required on the fish. The fish has no eyelids, representing the essence of Hashem, keeping the eyes open, and apekiha, on behalf of the Jewish people. There is no ayin hara that affects the fish because it's under the water, and the Jewish people are like the fish. You take a fish out of the water, what happens? Dies. You take a Jewish person from the Torah, what happens? Dies. That's why you eat fish on Shabbat. You like it? All right. It's not me. I'm a tape recorder. I'm only telling you what's written in the holy books. That's why we eat fish on Shabbat. Maybe more reasons, but I'm giving you the easy to digest reasons. Not only that, I can tell you one more thing. That many of the food items that we eat on Shabbat, they connect to the number 7. Fish, how do you say fish in Hebrew? Dag. 4 and 3, 7. How do you say wine in Hebrew? 70. 70. How do you say meat in Hebrew? 502. 5 and 2, 7. How do you say bread in Hebrew? Challah. 43. 4 and 3, 7. You like it? Somebody asked me, what about the kibbe? I said, kibbe is a kibbe kof yod bet he. That's 117. 1 and 7, that's 9. So eat 2 more kibbes, you'll come up to number 7. Bureka is the same gematria. In other words, you add and you get there. In a more serious note, I'm not kidding. On the foods that we eat on Shabbat, they connect to the number 7. Why? Because 7, it's like this week's perashah. In this week's perashah, we talk about the, right, I'm going to get there. We speak about the menorah, correct? Beze ma'aseh menorah. I'm making you a simple menorah. You need to know that there are 2 versions of how was the menorah in the Mishkan. I'm going to draw them for you. These are the 2 opinions. Angle or semicircle. We're not going to discuss the Rambam holds like Rashi. The angle. Other opinions based on the Ark of Titus in Rome, that's how it looks. But irrelevant of which opinion we follow, all of the menorah, you say this. The Rambam al Rashi say this. This was made by Goim, according to history. But it's irrelevant which opinion. We're not debating which opinion is the right one. But the message of the menorah, what's the message? Let me go back to the original drawing. What is the message of the menorah? Short answer. The center pole represents the day of Shabbat. Right? And then you have every day of the week shining. That was a miracle in the Mishkan. All the flames were centering to the center pole. This is Shabbat, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What's the word on top here? Ismehu, happiness. Ismah Moshe b'matenat Helko, the famous prayer of Shabbat. Who is a Shabbat for? Beni uben bnei Israel ot hi le'olam. The Shabbat is a covenant for the Jewish people. You understand? So, Hachamim establish that a person that eats, for example, fish and meat on the same meal, everybody changes the plates. Everybody knows this. You change the plate. But today's halakha, it goes above the plate. It's about washing your hands in between. Some people do, most people don't do, but people do understand, and people eat something in between, right? Drink a bit of wine or water to bring down the food or whatever fluids you're going to have, and you eat meat to keep a separation in your digestive system between the mixing of the fish and other food that you will eat afterwards. So the washing, the Gemara writes, is reshut. As the Gemara, why do we call my maharonim hoba? It says, why do you call the waters before Birkat Hamazon mandatory? The Gemara goes even further, and it says the same concept, and it says the Gemara, en notlim ella bekeli ve'en notlim al gabe karka. It says, when you do my maharonim, you use a keli. When in Israel, or you go to a Judaica store, and they sell a my maharonim kit, right? A small washing cup and a plate. It's not for stam that they offering you this, because that is based on the Gemara, that you don't spill the water of my maharonim on the floor, because that water contains tum'ah. That water contains impurity. Right, not only that, it's tum'ah. Now, what tum'ah does the water of my maharonim contains? So there are a few answers to this. Number one, the word hoba means what? Hoba, obligation, right? Hazaku baruch. You know what is the root word of the word hoba? Hayav, guilty. Guilty of what? I sat down to eat. Yeah, the question is, how did you eat? Like Yaakov or Esav? That's why you do my maharonim. Before you eat, you are like Yaakov. You wash your hands, you lift up your hands, you say, God, I love you, Baruch atah Hashem natilat yadayim. You start eating like Yaakov. Slowly, nice. As the Saudah goes by, we suddenly have a transformation. From Yaakov, calm, cool, and receptive, suddenly we became like Esav, vacuum cleaner. I don't believe in leftovers. Tavi, bring me, yabbi. That's it. You become like a recycle bin. Okay? So that level of behavior, the Pasuk writes, David HaMelech says, Betoratecha betoch me'ai. Your Torah is in my stomach. So the Be'er HaChaim asks, and it says, what does it mean that Torah is in your stomach? The Torah should be in your neshama, should be in your brain. It says, no. That the Torah is in my brain is a given. You're learning food for thought. But when I'm able to bring the Torah into my stomach, that means that I'm eating in a proper way, so then the food carries Yirat Shamayim in the person's life. The Sefer Hasidim says, Al yeh adam gargeran. What's the meaning of a gargeran? A glutton. Gluttony. You heard of this? Okay. Gargeran, some Lashon Garon. Suddenly, your throat becomes a Vitamix. Food comes in non-stop. I'm not saying not to eat, but my Maharonim was established on a Kabbalistic end for this reason, to purify our fingers in the event that we ate in a way that is similar, closer to Esav than to Yaakov Avinu. So when we wash our hands, besides the ruling of the rabbis to prevent blindness, I saw in the Sidur Et Ratzon that a person, and this may sound strange to some, but I have it in writing in my office, that it says that a person that has sefekot of emunah, or their emunah is shaky, to be careful in doing Birkat Hamazon with my Maharonim. Birkat Hamazon is the Oraita. My Maharonim is the Rabbanan. I ask you a question. Don't jump. I know you. Gemara Kiddushin says the following, but I'm going to put a question. I'm not going to tell you what it says. What's worst? Transgressing a rabbinical commandment or a biblical commandment? You say biblical. The Gemara says rabbinical. I know it doesn't make sense in your brain. But the Torah gave the power to the Chachamim, al pi Torah asher yorucha, ועל כל הדבר אשר יגידו לך, לא תסור ימין ושמאל. It says the Torah, whatever the Chachamim decree, we follow. Don't turn left, don't turn right. Comes Rashi and asks, why do you have to bring me left and right? It says, even if they tell you right is left and left is right, we follow the Chachamim. And that's what I said yesterday in the afternoon class. It says, we are trained, and I may have even said it in the morning, but we are trained as Yehudim to follow the Chachamim. It's a pasuk. והיו עיניך רואות את מוריך. We follow the Chachamim. Chachamim say jump, we say how high. Now somebody may say, hey, not all the rabbis are right. I then don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. We are humans at the end of the day. But the great Talmidei Chachamim, I'm not talking about the junior Talmidei Chachamim. I'm talking about the great Talmidei Chachamim. If it's in Brooklyn or if it's in Eretz Israel, they are called in the Torah language Einei Ha'edah, the eyes of the world, the eyes of the congregation. In the Hasidic world, right? There is a concept that Hasidim go to the Admor and they ask for a blessing or for an advice. Even if it's in Shidduchim, or to buy a house, or to buy a business, they don't make a move. What do you think? The rabbi reads the Wall Street Journal every day? You think that the rabbi has a police report of every name that's handed over? Okay, I have a name on me. Let me see the name that I have. I think I have a name. It's not for a shidduch. is for a newborn baby. I think I left it in the office already. Okay, doesn't matter. That's how they come. They come to the rabbi and they said, Rabbi, this is the shidduch offered. What do you say? The rabbi thinks, the rabbi asks a few questions. Try. Go out and try. Now you may say, never heard of such a thing. Okay, that you never heard, it's not my fault. I've heard and I've seen it. And I know many wonderful people of our community that they don't make a move without asking that Torah. This is how we are trained. You may say, it's too much power to the rabbi. It's nothing to do with power. Is that Hachamim, through the Torah, they are given somehow a way of seeing things different. You know, there is a statement that says, I think in the Gemara brings it down, and it says, En habush matir atzmo mi bet ha'asurin. In English, it means someone that is in jail, that is in a hole, cannot free themselves. Let's take this is the perfect example. The cop, it's the jail. The tea bag is the prisoner. If I don't have this string coming from the outside, how can I save the person? So this is the person, this is the hole. You see, you think that I woke up today in the morning thinking I'm going to have a tea bag to illustrate the statement of the Talmud? But God says, you know what? You're going to talk about it. I'm going to send you my shaliach. So now the tea bag, you see, the tea bag now became God's mouthpiece. So the tea bag is the person. The string is the salvation. I can be in the ground, I can be at the bottom of the well, but I need somebody from the outside to pull the strings. Otherwise, I don't come out. And Torah opens the mind and opens the brain of the person in so many different levels that unless you're living it, it's difficult to translate or to transfer. I cannot download what I'm trying to say. So let's continue. Comes the Gemara and it says the concept of not spilling my maharonim on the floor. That's why we have a keli, we wash, we get rid of it. Now, I ask you a question. The Gemara brings more concepts. In the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Mipene ma amru, my maharonim hoba. The Gemara says, you're repeating me the same sentence. My maharonim hoba, my maharonim obligation. Why? Why obligation? It says the Gemara, מפני שמלח סדומית יש, שמסמא את העיניים. It says, because this salt brings blindness to the eye, and therefore, Hachamim, in order to save the eyesight of people, it will wash the hands, and that removes it. Now, I mentioned a few moments ago, just 1 second, I mentioned the concept of Emunat Hachamim, and I started to discuss on that, and then I took a detour. So it says in the Sefer Et Ratzon that one of the concepts of Emunah, faith in Hashem, is a pasuk in our daily prayers. Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'Moshe abdo. We believed in God and in Moshe. So somebody may ask, how can the Torah puts on the same parallel Emunah in Hashem with Emunah to Moshe? Short answer, the way you get to true Emunah in Hashem is through Emunat Hachamim. Who said this? The Kedushat Levi. Emunat Hachamim, Debekut Boreh, the famous Mosai Shabbat prayer, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzhak, Elokei Yaakov. What the Kedushat Levi says? You have the prayer Kedushat Levi, you have an Ashkenaz Sidur in your cell phone? I'm going to read it to you very quickly. Some Sidurim have it also now. Don't worry, I'll get it. Show me, get me on a browser and I'll get it for you immediately. Thank you so much. Hazaku Baruch. Nice. Nice. I have it, Mosai Shabbat prayers. Nes Gadol. Okay. Nice. Okay. A lot of icons to go through, but I'm going to find it. Give me a minute. Nusach Sfard. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I have it. Nice. Marif. I have it. It says as follows. Nowadays, many Sidurim have this prayer. It says as follows. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, protect and save your beloved Jewish nation from all evil. When our beloved Shabbat is about to depart, let it be that the week and the month and the year should come upon us. Listen to the order of the prayer. Emunah Shelema, complete faith in God. Emunat Hachamim, Emunah toward Hachamim. Ahavat Haverim, love among friends. Belidbikuta Boreh Baruchu, and bonding with God. Lehamin, to believe in the 13 principles of faith, complete redemption of Mashiach's survival immediately, the resurrection of the dead, and the prophecies of Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. Master of the universe, for those at home. As I said, this is found in many new Sidurim, in the Aneni book that many wonderful people have at home for all prayers is there as well. And in many Ashkenaz Sidur or Mosai Shabbat, this is found. So it says, Master of the universe, you are the one who gives to the exhausted one the strength. Give us, your beloved Jewish children, the power to praise you and to be grateful to you and to serve you accordingly and no one else. And let it be the week coming upon us to bring us health, good mazal, blessing and success, and kindness to us, to our children, with longevity, with abundance of livelihood, and heavenly assistance to us and every member of the Jewish people. Benomar, Amen. That is the magnificent prayer composed by the great Kedushat Levi, Rabbi Levi Ishakov Bardichov. It's a power. I say this for years already. Who knows, maybe 15, 20 years. Every Mosai Shabbat, we say this 3 times. Why 3 times? Because I want to seal the deal. Sometimes when you do something 1 time, it's not the same. You do 3 times, it constitutes a hazakah. It's not mandatory prayer, but I personally love the prayer, love the content of the prayer. It's an all-inclusive prayer. This is besides the Ve'iten Lecha that we say, which is printed in all Sidurim. But bottom line, the Et Ratzon says that when a person follows the guidelines of the Hachamim, we never lose. We never lose. Some people may not have the easiness of understanding the way I'm sharing it with you. Guess what? We need to get there. We need to get there. You know, I'll finish with this. The Gemara brings a very interesting dialogue that took place between God, Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Jewish people. What was the topic of the question and answer? If God's, listen to this, God's selection of Bezalel to be the architect of the Mishkan was a good decision or not? You say, of course. God wasn't so sure. Because the Torah is teaching us lessons. Before I answer you the question, I'm going to bring you even another question. In the beginning of Sefer Bereshit, the Pasuk says, Naase Adam besalmenu kidmutenu. In English means, let us make men in our form, in our image. And Rashi has a question. Who is God consulting with? You run a business, right? Do you ask your employee if you want to make a decision of buying a certain lot of tables or chairs? You don't. Most people don't. So consult is a different story. But usually you don't. Usually you don't. Why not? You're the boss. You don't ask the janitor, what do you think? You don't ask the guy who fixes up the shelves, what do you think? Should I buy this merchandise or not? Obviously, you may consult, like you said. That's exactly what God did. So Rashi asked, why God needs to ask the angels? It says, from here you learn humility, that there is no embarrassment from someone older and more seasoned to consult with the young. That's what happened with Bezalel. God says to Moshe, Moshe, do you think that Bezalel could be a good candidate to design the Mishkan? Moshe says to God, God, if you approve, tell me where to sign. What was God's answer to Moshe? Go and check with the Jewish people. See if they are willing to accept Bezalel, which was a 12-year-old child, to be the architect of the Mishkan. So you know what was the reaction of the Jewish people when Moshe came to ask such a question? They said, Moshe, if you approved and God approved, do you need our approval? Moshe Rabbeinu says, yes, I need your blessing. Okay, my dear friends? There are more examples, but for today, we're going to say what we say in the night of Pesach. Dayenu. Dayenu. Yeah, don't start singing Had Gadia now. Okay, my good friends? תזכו לשנים רבות. Shabbat Shalom. Tomorrow is Shabbat. And Ba'ezat Hashem, we'll see each other a bit later. ברוך אדוני לעולם. אמן ואמן. רבי חנניה בן הקשיא אומר, צא הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך